Hello, Stepan here. We have a game, finally. The last two games have been bad, and I've also played a league game that I'm going to show you, I think, tomorrow. I haven't had time to analyze it completely, and as you know, I'm not going to analyze it with an engine. I'm going to do that at the end of the video. Okay, let's concentrate on this one. 2357, the Bayonet Attack. Let's play bishop d7. Let's go into a French where white has played g4. Usually against the bayonet I play bishop d7. I had one tournament game in this variation and ended up winning, although my opponent was, I want to say 1800, but maybe 1700. I don't know. That was in Graz 2 years ago or a year ago. Maybe it was January 2023. Okay. E6. Usually people play knight c3 instead of f4. So this is... I don't think this is the main line stuff. So c5... I want to play c5 and h5. c5 definitely. So I may as well play it now. Usually after h5, g5, g6, I get my knight from e7 to f5, but I'm gonna start with c5. Okay, knight c6. Normal, this is normal French stuff, except you don't play for f6. And I'm sorry, I don't think it's a cold. I think I got it from my niece, some sort of flu. So if I sneeze, I'm sorry. If I have to use a tissue, I'm sorry. So h5, g5, g6 seems promising. Let's do that. I want to activate my rook. Obviously, it's never getting active along the 8th rank. As I said, I'm sorry for the cold. Let's call it a cold. So h5 is a tricky move because my rook threatens to activate, and on g5 I gain access to the f5 square, and after g5, g6 I prevent f5 and I prevent g6. And it really isn't that easy for my opponent to ignore h5. That's why you don't play knight f3. At least in some lines after h5 you can take, and then black has to spend the move regaining the pawn. In fact, my tournament game went h5 takes, and then eventually after knight f3 I played rook h5. Yeah, now g6. And my opponent's gonna have to control f5, because if I get to sit a knight on f5, that's gonna be the greatest knight in the world. Although at the moment, yeah, knight h4 would fail to CD. So if queen b6, dc, queen b2, knight d2, queen c3 seems okay. Queen b6, b4, I can take on b4, queen b6, queen b3, takes. I don't want to take. I'm gonna take on d4, I think. Now knight f5 becomes even more tempting, of course, because there's a bishop on e3. So queen b6, if dc, if bishop c, then queen c. I'm not sure if I should take on c5. So queen b6, dc, queen b2. Knight d2, queen c3. Rook b1. I can take on e3. I like queen b6. I'm gonna play queen b6. I don't think my opponent can take on c5. And the question is, on queen b3, do I play c4? I don't think so. Even though that would give me the standard b5, b4 undermining plan. How far is my opponent from castling? So queen b3, c4, queen b6, a b6, castles, b5, knight d2, b4. That actually works. I'm in time for the minority attack. That's a well-known plan from the London system and many e6, c6 structures, or e6, c5. I'm a minute up on the clock. That's good. Okay, queen c2. So if I take, well, maybe I don't take. Maybe I play rook c8. Let's see. cd, knight d, bishop d, bishop c5. I'm not a big fan of that. cd, rook c8. The queen's gonna have to move. I don't want to go knight e7 because that loses the c pawn, so that's out of the question. So either rook c8 or cd. Rook c8, dc, bishop c. I like that. I'm gonna go rook c8. Lining up my rook with my opponent's queen seems like a good idea, and the upside to the normal Caro-Kann lines is that there is no queen a4 in any variation, because of course my bishop is in d7. This is, I think this is an improvement on the French. I mean, obviously there is no kingside attack for a white after h5, and if the knight moves away from f3, then again knight e7, knight f5, where my opponent, okay. So I have rook c1 check at the end, so takes. If knight takes, bishop takes, bishop c5, bishop c5, queen c5, rook c5, there's knight, no, there's no knight d4, the knight has been traded off. So if I take on d4, rook c1 becomes a threat in the end. So c takes d4. If c takes d4, I have knight b4. If knight takes d4, then knight takes d4. If then bishop takes d4, I have bishop c5. Okay, I like that. I'm just gonna take. I always have knight b4. And of course I had to do something. My c pawn was triple attacked. Okay, knight takes. Do I play bishop takes first? There may be knight c2. Now there's no more control of f5 if I trade. So knight d4, c d4. Or bishop c5. Bishop c5. Knight c2. There's knight c2. But then I have d4. Oof. If knight d4 cd, then I definitely have bishop d2 because on bishop b4, because on bishop d2 I have rook c1. So the bishop's gonna take on d4, and then I play bishop c5, and then if bishop c5, queen c5, rook c5, I like that position. I actually like that position. And if I take on d4, sorry, and if I play bishop c5 straight away, then knight c6, rook c6. Yeah, I'm gonna take immediately. I like taking immediately. C takes isn't playable. Okay, so bishop c5. Oh, my opponent doesn't take. So now I'm gonna drop down to c2 with my rook. So bishop takes. If c takes, then not rook c2 straight away, because of queen c2, and on queen d4 I don't really have anything because of queen f2. And I also have to connect my rooks first. So I'm thinking knight e7 before I do anything irrational. Let's just play for knight f5 and try to connect my rooks. I also have knight c6, double attacking d4 once again. I love my position. This is a dream position from the Bayonet. I'm down 2 minutes on the clock though. I don't know why. It doesn't seem like I've spent much time. I think bishop h3 has to be played, because if knight f5 happens, then what does white do, actually? Maybe rook d1 saves the game, but I don't think so. This is a dream position. I'm gonna say that again. I love my position. Doesn't mean I'm gonna do well. I can lose, as you know from my games, but if I could sign up for having this every time I play against the Bayonet, I would take it. My bishops are good. My d7 bishop is gonna have the b5 square. My knight has the f5 square. And if my opponent wants to challenge it, it has to be done either by knight d2, f3, h4, or bishop h3. And getting the knight to f3 seems unlikely, because I always have queen takes b2. Yeah, has to be prevented. So now if I castle, should I castle or should I take on d4 first? So bishop d4, if queen d4, c d4, there is rook c2. If castles, then knight d2, bishop d4, c d4, rook c2 seems very nice. So I could take or I could castle. If takes, c takes, knight c6, rook d1 has to be played. But then I have knight b4. Oof. Takes, c takes, knight c6. Oh, this could just be winning for black. Bishop d4, c d4, knight c6, rook d1, knight b4. Is there really rook d2? I also have bishop a4 in some positions, but... Okay, bishop d4, queen d4, c d4, rook c2. That much is clear. Bishop d4, c d4. Should I go rook c4? There's also rook c4. Am I just winning that pawn? So bishop d4, c d4, rook c4, rook d1, knight c6. Yeah, okay, I'm just gonna take. I don't see a way for my opponent to defend. So if rook c4, rook d1, knight c6. If rook c4, rook c4, is there a defense? Rook d1, knight c6. No, I don't see it. I'm gonna play rook c4. And if the d-pawn falls, in the advanced Caro-Kann, that's usually a positional end of the game because black has a passed d-pawn. And the bishop is still stuck on h3 because knight f5 is coming. Maybe my opponent should just play knight c3 and trade queens. But that seems awful. If knight d2, then rook d4, rook c1, for example. I even have rook takes f4, because on queen b6 I play rook f1. Wow! Knight d2, rook d4, rook c1, rook takes f4, queen b6, rook f1, king f1, or bishop f1, a b6, rook c7. There is rook c7, but I have bishop c6 because my knight still covers c8. Oof. And that wins the rook. Knight d2, rook d4, some rook to c1, rook takes f4, queen takes b6, queen takes b6, rook f1. Let's say rook f1 or king f1 or bishop f1, a b6, rook c7, bishop c6. Nice, let's go. I think this is winning. Again, I could mess it up, but I think it's winning. There are many Caro-Kann lines in which white has a knight on f3 and black plays the bishop from f5 to g4 to undefend d4, and this reminds me of those lines. I usually have them in the h5 tile Caro-Kann. Okay, knight c6. How does my opponent defend? I don't think they do. Well, okay. I can just take on d4. Do I take with the rook or with the knight? If I take with the knight, I'm threatening knight e2 check. But my opponent can take on c4, so I probably take with the rook. Knight takes or queen takes. If I take with the knight, I'm threatening knight e2, king moves, and then queen takes f2, king takes f2, knight takes f4, attacking the bishop. But my knight is kind of stuck after bishop f1, although I have h4, knight h5 as a resource. But I will have to worry about a rook c1, rook c7. And on knight takes d4, if my opponent just plays king g2, that could be slightly problematic. Yeah, I'm gonna take with the queen. Wait, my opponent has knight. My opponent has knight b5. So queen d4, there is knight b5. And on queen d4, knight b5. Threatening knight d6. So if I play knight d4, I think my opponent has to move the king. But then I have time for a6, but then my queen is undefended. So queen d4, I'm afraid of knight b5. I have to play queen takes f2, and then I don't have knight takes e5 because of knight d6 check, king e7, f e5. So queen d4, knight b5, queen f2, king f2. Can I just castle? Knight d6, b6, seems okay. I think I have to take with the queen. I don't think I can afford taking with the knight. Knight b5 is very, very scary. If I'm given one more move, I play a6, and I don't think there's any counterplay. Yep. Okay, so let's take. Now I was thinking I can castle, but is there something better? I don't think so, so let's castle. Okay, so I was planning to play b6, but I may also be able to play rook b8. Rook b8. Rook b8 is better. I don't want to undefend my knight just yet. And I have to get rid of that knight. So I want to go knight a5, knight c4. I can also go knight e7, knight c8. But then if I ever take, then the pawn comes to d6 and the rook could come into c7. But I do have bishop c6. So knight e7, rook c1, bishop c6, b4 a6, a4, knight c8, b5, ab. No, I can actually take on d6 and then take. Okay, I think that's okay. I'm gonna play knight e7, knight c8. I have to get rid of that knight. Excuse me. Everything I thought was gonna happen is happening, except that a4 isn't really playable. I mean, maybe it is, trading the b pawn for the a pawn, but... Okay, if I go knight c8, knight c8, a4, knight d6, b5, takes, takes, bishop takes, rook c7. How scary is that? Am I gonna lose? No, I think I'm fine. Oh, I did not see that. That's a nice idea. So let's get my king in closer. So king f8. King c5, king e7. Oh, that's nice. I didn't see the king coming in. Okay, I'm bringing my king closer. My opponent isn't going to take, obviously. And their bishop is still out of play. Why am I down 6 minutes on the clock? Seems like a really simple position. Yeah, I should have played king e7 instead of castles. I just wasted 3 tempi on castling and then bringing my king in. Okay. So knight d6, e d6, bishop a4, rook c7, bishop c6. There's king e5, there's king c5. Scary. That's very scary. Knight d6, e d6, bishop a4, rook c7. And then again, I don't really have a choice at this point, because b5 threatens to win my bishop. Yeah, I don't have a choice. I have to do it. If rook c7 isn't played, well, yeah, unfortunately, everything good is getting played. So my opponent wants to get the king into f6. That's the threat. And then rook takes. So I'm gonna need to play king e8 and bishop d7 to prevent that. So king e8, king e5, bishop d7, king f6. Well, I may have rook. Okay, I'm playing king e8. I need to prevent d7. And oh, that's nice. Oh, that's really nice. Okay, let's go back. So do I start with bishop e8? I think so. I should still be fine. I think it just looks ugly. If king f6, I have to play rook d8. I have to play rook d8. And then I think I'm just quitting my d5 pawn. I don't know. I mean, if king f6, rook d8, king e5, d4. I think that should be it. I mean, congratulations to my opponent for finding these resources. He's playing exactly what I was afraid of, but I don't think it's enough. Maybe it is, but I don't see a breakthrough. Okay. So I was thinking b6, a5, and let's just activate my rook. b6. Rook a7, a5, takes, rook takes. I do have rook b4, but my opponent's gonna have to play bishop g2. Okay, I'm still playing b6 because I'm down to a minute on the clock. I need to. Well, actually, on rook a7, can I play a5, ba5, b4, b5? Wait a minute, rook a7, a5, ba5, b5. How does my opponent stop the pawn? Oh, I just lost my bishop? Oh, that's great. Ah, moron. Why am I such an idiot sometimes? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why am I doing this? Now I have to prevent king f6. Idiotic. I don't know why I did this. I didn't even see that my bishop was hanging. Oh. Well, that's great. Well, that's great. My opponent played poorly, and then when I got a better position, they just destroyed me. So good job. Let's see. f4 is already suspicious. Knight c3 is played. So after f4, I think black is already better. So let's check it out with the engine. c5, good. Knight c6, good. h4 is good. g6 is good. Yeah, I know these positions really well. Okay, takes. Wait, I should have gone bishop c5. Okay. Wait, why? Takes. Oh, rook c4 straight away. Okay. So yeah, I did that. A move later. Rook b4? Oh, so I can take with the knight. Okay. I had to go rook d8 first. Why? Oh, so I'm just trading pawns. Okay. Yeah, I didn't see that my bishop was hanging. I just didn't see it. Yeah, okay. After he got a bad position, my opponent played really well. So congratulations to him. Yeah. Oh, I lost 3 in a row. That's unfortunate. Hopefully it gets better. Thank you very much for watching and stay tuned for hopefully better chess. Bye-bye.